Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Difficult Conversations brought to you by Supply the Y. We have a very special night planned tonight. We have not one, but two outstanding gentlemen, people I've known for quite some time that have a ton of information, and they really do a great job of explaining their perspectives. So the first person I'm going to bring on is Dr. Obed Magny. Obed, how you doing?
How you doing, sir?
All right. So, Obed, tell us a little bit about yourself and your background.
Yeah, thanks. So, 16-year veteran police officer out here in California, in the Golden State. I happen to have a doctorate degree in organizational leadership. I currently run my own consulting company called Magny Leadership. I'm a high-profile coach and motivational speaker. I'm a NIJ lead scholar alumni. And so for those who don't know, the NIJ is the research arm of the Department of Justice. So I've got a passion for research in policing. I'm a co-founder of the American Society of Evidence-Based Policing. I'm a fellow with the National Police Foundation. I just walked 54 miles from Selma to Montgomery with two of my colleagues from around the country to commemorate the civil rights movement of the 60s. And obviously, there's a lot of parallels with what was going on back then to what's going on today. So just a little bit about me. I have a passion for helping advancing policing forward, especially when it comes to trust and legitimacy, with the policing institution and the communities that we serve. So that's just a little bit about me. Love the Miami Hurricanes football team. Obviously, we're not going to have any college football this year, so I got something else to do, right? So yeah, that's just a little bit about me.
That's outstanding. Outstanding. Welcome. Next is somebody that we all know. It's a veteran. It's somebody who's been on the show before. He was one of the most talked about guests that I've had so far. Everybody, Michael Powell is back once again to share his point of views with us. How you doing, Mike?
Glad to be here. Dean, first of all, I want to say, how do you put me behind this guy right here? I mean, how am I supposed to contend with that? You already set me up for failure, but that's okay. That's okay. No. On a serious note, I appreciate you having me back, Dean. And like I said on the previous time you had me on, it's a pleasure. It really is a pleasure to be here, and I think this is important. What you're doing. Same thing with Obed. I mean, his background is outstanding. Something that I hope to achieve at some point in my lifetime. But like you all, I'm a veteran. 15 years on the job. Prior to that, I was military service. So I've been in public service all my adult life, and I can't see myself doing anything else. So. Like you two know, it's troubling times now, but we'll make it through it. And these conversations that we're having here helps the cause, because education is important both ways.
Well said. Go ahead, Obed. You want to respond?
Oh no, it's just amen. That was it. That's all I can say. Amen.
All right. I didn't know if you were going to catch a Holy Ghost or what, right? So, gentlemen. Like you said, there's a lot to unpack in the past few weeks. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk a little bit about how I've been feeling and how I think that pertains to where we are today. So lately, I've been feeling as if very damned if you do, damned if you don't in this line of work, in that we can go out and we can do our thing. We can be the change that we envision and all that. And it's just not good enough. I'm seeing people on my Facebook page, on my timeline, and I'm seeing the memes, and I'm seeing, all these things that we should be doing. Cops should be doing this, and they should be doing more of that. I'm not seeing a ton of practical ways to make this happen because, as you guys know, I'm a good listener. I'm listening. I know we're not perfect. I know there's things we could be doing better, but I'm not seeing a lot of practical ways we can make some of these changes work. For example, I saw one meme where it said, something along the lines of every profession has its bad apples, but there's one profession that can't have any bad apples, and it's police work.
Mm-hmm.
And that sounds good in theory, but I'm wondering, how do you actually make sure that happens? Like, what do these people suggest in order to put that to work? So, I'll go to you first, Obed. What do you think about that? How can we kind of do better as far as weeding out the bad apples, so people at home behind the keyboards can feel better about what we're doing?
Well, this is almost too easy to answer, but it's going to end up being like 15 hours long, so I'm going to try to keep this short. So, do you guys know what happened today?
What happened today?
Planes took off, and planes landed in the United States and all over the world. And it didn't make the news. Do we know why? It's because we expect planes to take off and we expect planes to land without any tragedy. And the only time we hear about anything is when there's a crash or anything like that. So when you equate that to policing, we cannot afford a bad apple. We cannot afford a mishap. We can't afford any incidences where the trust and legitimacy is not there. If we didn't have any trust and legitimacy in the airline industry, right, nobody would fly. So one of the things that the FAA does is in all of their processes, in everything that they do thorough investigations, but something that they also use is evidence and research. And something we don't do enough of in policing is utilize evidence and research. I mentioned on the top of the show that, I'm one of the co-founders and executive board members of the American Society of Evidence-Based Policing. And one of the things that we push for is for strategies, policies that enhance the profession with doing the least amount of harm to the community. So when you think about a medical procedure, whether you're getting heart surgery or whether you're seeing a nutritionist or anything like that, the advice they're going to give you is going to be based on objective research and research that we know is effective and that's not going to do any harm to you or do the least amount of harm to you. So when we start to talk about, bad apples here, bad apples there, does that come back to training? De-escalation has been one of those conversations that you hear all the time. Oh, we need officers to do more de-escalation training, yada, yada, yada. You know how much time we spend on de-escalation training around this country? In your average academy, you're looking at best, anywhere between 4 to maybe 6 hours in the course of 6 months, and then that's it. You don't get anything else as far as continued professional training or anything like that on that subject. This is why, I do the work that I do with a lot of police organizations and leaders around, policing around the country, is that we need to make that a staple in our institution, in the profession, because you're not going to get any trust and legitimacy if our processes are not rooted in trust, legitimacy, research, and doing what's effective that people can believe in and that people, will trust. So I know that we have a couple bad apples here and there, but we have some processes within the institution that need some revamping, reform. There are some things we can do better. And the mere fact that, thankfully, at least in 2020, we can talk about this out loud, is very encouraging because there was a time where, just the mere fact that you could say out loud that you want to, improve policing, just didn't take place.
Well put. Mike, you want to respond to that?
That is a sexy answer right there. That is. Again, I'm not as eloquent as the doctor, but when I hear this, I like to equate it to and I had this conversation with regular folks, and the way I equate it is you can be in a relationship, right? You can be married to somebody who is, and I'm talking about when you're talking about bad apples in the organization, and you should know, and this and the other. I equate it to a marriage, right? You could be married 20 years. You could be married 25 years. You could be married 35 years. The fact of the matter is sometimes you don't know that something's wrong until something bad happens. And that's ultimately, sometimes that's when we catch it, when something bad happens. But if you reverse it, sometimes we don't see those signs. And I think that's important for people to understand. And that's why I equate it to like real life situations to let people visualize that it's like a marriage. Same thing when working with your partners. Sometimes you can work with your partner day in and day out for 25 years and they've done all the right things. And then something goes wrong. Something went wrong. And ultimately that's when we make the news. But those past 25 years have been outstanding. And I think that's important for people to understand. And again, I'm not as eloquent as the doctor, but that's how I like to tell regular folks my experience with bad apples when they say you should know bad apples in your profession.
Mike, Obed, I don't know what to say. First of all, Mike, you're not giving yourself enough credit, buddy. You are plenty eloquent, and the people love you. My comment section just lit up as soon as you started talking. My comment section started lighting up. You know, people that have known me for years, they don't even want to talk to me anymore. They know you're here. I might as well not even be here if you're here. So I think give yourself a little bit of credit there. So I'm just going to check out the comment section here. We have a few shout outs. We have Dennis Bradbury, who Mike and I cut our teeth with when we first started in law enforcement 16 years ago as Boston Special Police Officers. So big up to Dennis. We have Karen OFD. So Karen, quick shout out to Karen. So Karen has a company called Meeting House Mill. And this is my new Supply the Y cup. You see this? All right. So thank you, Karen. All right. And then I love this pot on the back too with all the different hands. So Karen, thank you, Meeting House Mill. Check it out. She's got a Facebook page called Meeting House Mill. Check it out. She does amazing work, and she's a big supporter of what we're trying to do here. Also in the comments, we have my mother supporting her son. Hi, Ma. How are you?
Hi, Mom.
Hi, Mom.
And we have another academic, Sharika Alford, somebody that Obed and I went to college with. Super smart woman, super squared away, a big ball of energy, and not much of a spades player, but she's a great she's a great teacher, and she's a great aspect. And she's a great. I'm just kidding, Sharika. You're a great spades player. But you are a great aspect to the Boston school system. I know that every kid that's had you is better for having had you in their life. So with that said, I'm going to play a video, gentlemen, that I think pertains to a lot of what we're talking about. And then if you're watching at home, feel free to ask us questions about the video. Feel free to ask us questions in general. And check it out. I think it's pretty powerful.
We're asking cops to do too much in this country. We are. We're just asking us to do too much. Every societal failure, we put it off on the cops to solve. Not enough mental health funding. Let the cop handle it. Not enough drug addiction funding. Let's give it to the cops. Here in Dallas, we got a loose dog problem. Let's have the cops chase loose dogs. Schools fail. Give it to the cops. 70% of the African community is being raised by single women. Let's give it to the cops to solve that as well. That's too much to ask. Policing was never meant to solve all those problems. And I just ask for other parts of our democracy, along with the free press, to help us serve your communities. Don't be a part of the problem. We're hiring. We're hiring. Get off that protest line and put an application in. And we'll put you in your neighborhood, and we will help you resolve some of the problems you're protesting about.
Wow. That video, I've heard that speech from he was the chief of Dallas PD. When he made that speech, he is now the the commissioner of the Chicago Police Department now. David Brown, obviously just a powerful speech for those of us that are in the grind and those of us that decided to step up and try to be part of the solution. So I'm going to go to Mike first. Let me bring Mike back up. So Mike, you can kind of just talk us through your thought process about that video and what were your thoughts? How did it make you feel hearing Chief Brown's?
I think I share his sentiments. I share a lot of the things that he's saying has some validity to it. That I think that some folks, you know, they're making a lot of noise, for lack of a better term. And again, by no means am I saying that I don't think people should protest. I think people should, if they feel that their government isn't representing them well, protest. Peaceful protest is a beautiful thing. But sometimes you have to go beyond that, and you have to be the change you want to be, right? So a lot of us, if you want to make a change and you want to make it meaningful and make it impactful, and bring and add a positive light to certain situations in certain communities, like he said, go out there and experience it for yourself. Go out and put on the uniform and get a taste of what some of the men and women have to deal with, and the awesome restraint that the majority of the folks that wear this uniform wear. And I think that's important for people to understand. I see it every day. The men and women that wear that uniform, the amazing amount of restraint. We are human beings. We are not robots, right? We're not. We don't go into roll call and we turn our backs and the supervisor programs, certain messages into a keyboard that's attached to our bodies. It's not like that. We are human beings. We feel, we bleed, we cry, we do everything else that folks in the community do. And that's what this conversation here is for, Dean. It's for you folks like us. Hopefully, we'll let other folks know that there's ways that your voice can be heard in a positive way, in a real way, in a tangible way. And like the chief said, go out there, go out there and make a difference in your community. I've used this saying on my page is deeds, right? Deeds, not words. Deeds, not words. It's a powerful thing.
100%. Yeah, deeds, not words. It's a simple statement, but I got to say right now, I'm not seeing a whole lot of that. I hear all kinds of things. We got to diversify this and we got to do that. And I got to say, I'm not seeing a ton of people that want to do this job right now.
And Dean, and that's amplified by folks that look like us. No one wants this job right now, but it's amplified with people that look like you and I. I mean, unfortunately.
Talk a little bit more about that, Mike. And Obed, I'll come right back to you for a reaction. Go ahead.
Yeah, and we want a lot of police departments around the country. We want our police departments to reflect the community, no doubt about it. But it's some police departments are restricted to the civil service exam. You take the test. There's a process, so you can't just pick and choose who you want. Ultimately, you got to take the test and you got to land on the test, and that's how the hiring process is here in Massachusetts. So, but there is no doubt about it that police departments across the country want their police departments to reflect the community. But unfortunately, police departments are having a very, very and prior to this whole situation we're dealing with, prior to that, people didn't want this job, and it's only been amplified with the atmosphere that we find ourselves in today. So it's extremely difficult to recruit quality candidates. I give the mic to you, my fine sir.
I was actually going to throw a little remix on that deeds. I was going to say receipts because people are looking for receipts now, and we don't have too many receipts out there. To your point, wow, where do you start? So, selfishly, the chief is right. Put down the sign and join the police department. So I get that part. But to Dean's point, and to your point, now I don't have any kids. I ain't married or anything like that. So I'm just saying this hypothetically. And it's meant to be rhetorical. But if you had a son or a daughter and they came to you today and they were like, hey, mom, dad, I want to be a police officer. In today's climate, would you support that? And let's be honest, would you? You're talking about ridicule. You're talking about an institution that is not legitimate. I mean, you're going to tell them, hey, be a firefighter or a nurse because that's much safer. They love firefighters. They love nurses, right? Well, why is that? So I get where the chief is coming from, and he's absolutely right. Be a part of the solution. Don't be a part of the problem. Now, having said that, that is not to say that if you don't become a police officer, you still can't contribute. Okay. And I thought the beginning of that video was fire. Okay. When he was talking about, hey, you got a hangnail? Call the police. What? Your roommate stole your headphones and you want to call the police. What? You heard some voices in, you know what I'm saying? Saying, call the police. And that's what it is. The police are the end all be all of everything that's going on in America today. And I would even say all over the world, because people are turning up everywhere in the UK, all of this. So this is not just limited here to the United States, but for obvious reasons, we're all here in the United States. So we're going to have this conversation for here. But so this goes back to the processes that I was talking about. If Mike and I are roommates and, you know, Mike takes my controller because, and mind you, just for the record, I haven't played video games since 2007. Okay, so I don't even know what the latest things are out here right now. But if me and Mike are playing PlayStation, I don't even know if PlayStation's still doing their thing. So Mike takes my remote and says, "Man, give me that remote because you know what, you don't know how to play with it." And then we get a little tissy fit. And Mike calls 911. The police are expected to show up and mediate that situation. So I ask you, okay, is that a police response? Is that a response that requires police presence? Because now the police come in here and now I'm turning up with the police and now, you know, we get a little tissy fit and then you might have an unfortunate situation. This is like, what happened? We got this. Should we have been there in the first place? This is going back to what I was talking about with the FAA and other industries and so on and so forth. That's not a police problem. You taking my controller. It's not a police problem that, you know, you said a bad word to me or any, no. I'm just giving you my personal opinion, but when you look at what is the role of the police? What is it that the public, what is it that the citizens want from the police? You hear, you know, things like, you know, hey, when you're driving down the street, don't suspect me of being a crime. Hey, talk to me. Hey, how about you get out of your car and we can have a conversation? I want to know who your favorite college football team is if you watch college football. I want to know what are your triggers? What do you like to do for fun? Those type of things. And not see you in the police officer capacity, but see you in the human capacity. Mm-hmm. Because that's what it keeps coming down to. At the end of the day, it's all about relationships. Yep. And we don't have those relationships. Why don't we have those relationships? Both of you young men know why we don't have relationships. People are short-staffed. Agencies are short-staffed left and right. You're on one call. You're worried about somebody coming into your beat out of sector because you're trying to handle this, and then you're trying to code for that. Like, there are all of these nuances, and all of this is not just but they're intra-connected. Mm-hmm. And again, if we're talking about public safety, it can't be a police end-all be-all. It is economics. It is education. Shout out to my girls, you know, Sharifa in the audience there, UMass Boston. It takes a village to solve these issues. It is not the police will solve all this and then that's it. We're just going to dump them on, you know, these guys. So to the chief's point, yeah, we need more folks like Dean. You know, we need more guys like Mike. We need more guys like myself in the profession. But we can't ignore the structural deficiencies in the interconnectedness as we talk about, again, the city and the related municipalities. What is everybody else doing to help pick up the slack? Because if we treat everything as a public safety issue, we're going to have the same issue we had back in the 1970s and the 80s with the crack cocaine epidemic, where all we did was destroy families using the iron fist approach of zero tolerance. And how did that work out for us today? It didn't.
So let me bounce over to Mike. Mike, how about a response to what Obed just said? Good stuff, Obed.
Yeah. I think to touch upon what the chief said, police in today's society, we wear way too many hats. We got to be mom, we got to be dad, we got to be the doctor, we have to be the teacher, we have to be the disciplinarian. There's way too many hats, way too many things that are thrust upon us, and we are required, right? We're the last line. In society, unfortunately, it used to, a big portion of it used to be the church and the community itself, right? The community mm-hmm. itself used to mm-hmm. really help out and resolve a lot of, but, so getting to the community aspect of this is neighbors don't know how to walk across the street or to the left or right, ring the doorbell and say, hey, listen, ma'am, sir, can you, I'm trying to sleep. The music's too loud. Can you just turn it down? And vice versa. And the person that's maybe having a celebration forgets to go over to the neighbor and say, hey, listen, here's my phone number, right? If things get out of control, give me a call. You don't have to call the police. I'll turn the music down. Things will be okay. That doesn't happen anymore. Neighbors don't talk to each other anymore. So who's left to deal with that is law enforcement. And again, a lot of these things can be resolved, and it doesn't necessarily have to take a police officer to do. But unfortunately, all the other aspects of society and as far as community are gone. So you're left with law enforcement and law enforcement alone, and it's a heavy burden to bear for a lot of men and women that wear the uniform.
You guys are knocking it out of the park. It really is. It's like that old saying, do more with less. Do more with less. And that's kind of where we are now. And now with the defunding talk, that's really going to end up being do more with less if any of that goes through. The last thing you need with understaffed departments that are asked to wear all these different hats that really aren't within our bailiwick. We're not supposed to be doing all this, all this extra stuff. Like, for example, in my jurisdiction, we no longer have an animal control officer. So I kind of chuckled when I saw Chief Brown talking about there's a loose dog, go call the police. Because none of the people that I work with, we're not trained in that. Just kind of wing it and do the best we can because that's what's expected of us.
Yep.
Not very many other professions are asked to act so far outside of the scope of their training just to appease the public because that's what they expect of you. So really quick, I'm going to just go to the comment section real quick. Diane says, thank you for your sacrifice you make for us every day. You're welcome, Diane. We appreciate you appreciating us. Barry Silva says, in my community, we remove civil service hiring process. So as far as removing the civil service process, Barry, that does have some advantages and it has some serious disadvantages. So Obed, where you work, are you civil service?
Yes.
And Mike, I know that you're civil service where you work.
Yes.
All right. So what I'll do is I'm going to go to Mike. I'm going to have you just talk really quick about the advantages of civil service.
The advantage, the simplest way I can put it, the advantages to civil service, simply put, are it takes away the politics, right? It takes away the favoritism. It takes away a lot of that. But at the same time, it does make it difficult when it comes to discipline. It's a whole process. When it comes to hiring, it makes it a little difficult. But I think that's the simplest way that I can put it. Having civil service in place, it takes away the politics, right? It makes it as fair in the simplest way as far as hiring, promotions. So you take away a lot of the politics away. But again, there are definitely some negatives to it. Again, you're restricted to who you can hire. You're restricted to a list.
So, and Mike, just to clarify, what you mean by it takes away the politics is you mean because it's based strictly on test score, right?
That absolutely.
Okay. Obed, how about some negatives?
I swear you must have been like all up in you must have hacked my computer or something, man. You got all these answers, and I see what you're doing, Dean.
I always have an I have on the show. I knew that.
I feel you. I appreciate
so go ahead, brother. Take it away.
So this goes back. So let me say it this way. So Mike is 100% right. You take away a lot of the politics and you take a lot of the power away from those who might want to use it for nefarious reasons. So I will definitely acknowledge that Mike's 100% in that category.
Can we get some examples of what you mean by nefarious reasons?
So let's just say there's a minimum requirement to get in or something like that, right? And I move it's kind of hard to explain. So if there is no test score to get in, I can say, hey, based on the fact that, you got a C- in history in your school, that's an automatic disqualifier in the discussion. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, hey, you have to have a B-. Any leader can make up, if there is no civil service, for example, right? Any arbitrary reason to get rid of you. So if I want my police department to look like, I don't know, a bunch of guys that fit a certain mold that may not be, ideal for the community, who's going to stop me from hiring those type of folks? There's got to be some checks and balances, and it's got to be objective. And it's got to be based on research. It's got to be based on research. It's got to be based on a process that the community trusts. Do you see what I'm saying?
I do.
So, for example, for those in the audience who may or may not be familiar with this, so in Massachusetts, where I'm from, the Massachusetts State Police and the Boston Police has a civil service test where, basically the highest scores move on to the next round and so on and so forth. Out here in California, it's completely different. You do have to take what's called an appellate B test, and it's kind of like a reading and writing comprehension type thing, and you have to meet a minimum threshold. Once you meet that minimum threshold, you can apply to any police department within the state. Again, everybody does everything differently, and I know this is a separate conversation or a separate Supply the Why episode, where you have 18,000 police departments that have 18,000 ways of how they hire, and there's no uniform standard anywhere. So that in and of itself is its own separate conversation.
That show too. We'll bring you back for that one.
All right, I appreciate that. So again, I'm not going to belabor the point. So civil service is a double-edged sword. It's not a good thing, bad thing. It's got its advantages, it's got its disadvantages. I prefer the minimum standard of, hey, you're qualified overtly to be a police officer versus a test score. Because based on, the test scores of what I took in Massachusetts, I'm not qualified to be a police officer. But I go to a different state, and here I am with, the background that I have, that I'm blessed to say that I have. And it's just like, well, how does that happen? You know what I'm saying? So now you think about who else is disenfranchised, depending on the state that they live in. Because maybe they scored a 98 and not a 99, so they just got cut off with the rest of everybody else. Because again, this goes back to and I want to get wonky with this, but who do we want as our police officers? At the end of the day, do we want our police officers based on a test score, or do we want our police officers based on emotional intelligence and their ability to connect with people, and their ability to relate with people, and the ability to be out there as guardians as opposed to warriors at the end of the day? Do you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. If that's who we want, we got to have a testing process that finds and rewards and acknowledges those individuals, as opposed to just limiting you or pigeonholing you into a box of, hey, well, you got this question wrong, you got this question wrong, and because you missed it by a couple questions, Joey over here is going to get ahead, but you, good luck. You can take this test again next year or 2 years from now.
So, Obed, Mike, I can tell you're feeling some kind of way. Go ahead, Mike, jump in.
No, I like what he said about, you have to get out of that warrior mentality and get into that guardianship mentality, because that's important, especially for today's policing. You have to lose that warrior mentality, for the sake of building more genuine relationships with the communities that we serve. There was another point that I wanted to make that Obed said, but I lost my train of thought. Oh, so he said something about, and I said something earlier about, police departments want to have a police force that reflects the community, and I think that sometimes what another thing that people forget is sometimes the community switches and changes faster than we can change the makeup of any police department. So there's always going to be some funky imbalance as far as police departments trying to reflect their communities in regards to hiring. Communities change a lot faster than we can change. That's one of the unfortunate aspects of life. But that's all. I just wanted to touch bases on that. But I like what he said in regards to taking that warrior mentality, and you have to transition to that guardian mentality. It's important.
100%. So let me ask you this: how long? And again, I already know the answer to that because I'm a cop. Typically that's one of the rules we have. We don't ask questions we kind of already don't know the answers to. But Obed, how long does it take the hiring process from start, from the word go to the word you're hired, welcome aboard? How long does that take in your agency?
It depends.
Give me a pie in the sky estimate. So
generally speaking, about 6 months.
6 months. How about you, Mike?
6 to 8 months.
6 to 8 months. Mike, how about you?
I think a little less for us. I think it depends upon the academy date. Obviously, it depends on the examinations as far as psych exams, physical. When it all depends on the appointments that are available at that particular hiring process. So it could be anywhere between 3 to 6 months, like Obed said.
So go ahead, Obed.
Yeah, that's a really good, really good question, Dean. And maybe right now there is not as much interest in law enforcement as there used to be when I first came on, and that was like 16 years ago. And I know Mike, and I see him, affirming. When I first came on, there was like millions, not millions literally, but there were so many applicants. Okay. And I think coast to coast, that number has dropped significantly. And I don't know what the exact number is, but at a time when you would, for one academy class, for example, right, as Mike was mentioning, you may have had 50,000 people apply for, maybe you could get them into this academy that you're trying to weed through and so on and so forth. You're talking, and now we're at less than 19,000 putting in, less than 10,000 putting in for what normally would have been 50,000. Mm-hmm. So it's bad enough that you're trying to, obviously find the best or cream of the top, but now you don't even have enough almost to even rate or get the cream to the, cream of the crop and so on and so forth. So, now you've got law enforcement agencies, and this is something that, for those who don't know, at least out here in California, so I can't speak for what's going on in Massachusetts. In California, this is like, and I bring it up to college football again, right? But I'm going to equate it to the National Football League or National Basketball Association. You've got agencies out here who are in competition for bodies to the point where there are some agencies giving up $30,000 signing bonuses to lure other officers and other agencies to come to their agencies because the situation is that dire.
Did you say $30,000 signing bonus?
30. I'm not going to mention the agency's name, but there are agencies out here in the Bay Area, and there's not just one. There's more than one. There's a couple down in Southern California too. They're offering up to 30, and I'm talking, let me make sure those who are watching, that's a 3, a 0, a comma, a 0, a 0, and another 0.00. $30,000. I'm not making this up. And this is for laterals because they're like, listen, because we all understand when you're trying to hire somebody from the academy, first of all, you have to apply. You got to pass a test. And like, Mike was saying, you got to do this psychological, you got to pass a physical. There's this process just to even get into the academy, assuming you get to the academy. And then you got to think there's another 6 months of the academy. And then if you make it through those 6 months of the academy, there's another 6 to 8 months of field training. And then there's like another year before you get off probation, before you're actually solo and off probation. Do you know how much money that costs? That's a lot of money. All right. So it's easier if I'm a police chief, right? And I'm like, oh, Dean Jenkins, Mike, hey, both of you guys come over here. And here's the signing bonus of whatever. That cuts down on all of that time. It's easier to bring a body in that I don't have to retrain on, California law, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And again, I can't speak for every other state, but lateraling is a normal thing out here in California. So, recruiting, people don't understand, like nobody wants to be a police officer anymore. And that is an officer safety issue. That is a public safety issue. Yep. No doubt. If you don't have bodies out there, we're in a lot of trouble.
So I'm going to respond to that. Let me jump in there on that because Obed, clearly you were in my head talking about So here's my thoughts on the lateral transfer thing. You're right. I think when it comes to police work, when it comes to technology, when it comes to uniforms, when it comes to even trying new tactics, things kind of flow from the west to the east. We are still very much old school in the East. I mean, we do a lot of things great. I think our education is fantastic. I think our training is fantastic. But as far as doing things like just figuring out best ways to staff the staff departments, we're way behind. So, for example, it would be easy. Like you said, I've been in this line of work since 2004. It would be easier for me to transfer to your PD in California than it would be for me to transfer to many of the large agencies that are within 20 miles of my house. They make it impossible for you to lateral transfer. In fact, some places say we don't take lateral transfers, which is crazy to me. Here you are, some of these large agencies, they are hundreds of bodies understaffed. And you have people that are trained and, like you said, proven commodities that could start literally 2 weeks from the time you tell them they have the job. And only you'd have to do is just maybe give them like a quick in-house academy so they could learn your radio codes, your computer system, and maybe a little bit of your geography, and off you go. And that's for somebody who can cut the mustard, as opposed to saying, nope, we're not going to take laterals. We're only going to hire from academies. Or if you do lateral, we're going to put you back through an academy. I don't understand that. If you have a certified police officer, or let me look at it this way. Let's take myself outside of police work. Let's say that I am a financial investment strategist, and I want to go from H&R Block to Charles Schwab. Are they going to make me go back to college and learn all that stuff again? Or are they going to bring me at a step that's commensurate with my ability and pay me a salary and everything that's commensurate with my ability?
So Dean, that's it. Yeah. That's it. If policing were run as a business, we'd be out of business. We'd be in the red. I know, and I'm not even trying to be funny. You literally just nailed it right there. If we were run as a business, you're basically saying, you're telling me that something like I can't take Mike, who works, like you said, at H&R Block, or you at H&R Block, with all the qualifications. Yeah, you have to fill out an application, but you won't have to go through you won't have to start at the bottom and retrain and all that kind of stuff because you already know the business. So we'll just streamline you right in. Yeah, we'll update you on our policies and procedures a little bit, like the in-house academy, like you were saying. But if police were run as a business, there would be no business because we wouldn't be in the business.
Really quick. No, really quick. I just want to say I just saw a comment from John just popped up. Said I have lateral twice, easy peasy. So John is a guy that I've worked with. He must have not maybe missed what I said there. I was talking about the largest agencies, the ones that have the most upside, the ones that have all the units. They have all the specialty assignments, the things that people really want when you become a cop. Everybody says, "Oh, I want to be a detective. I want to be that." Everybody says that when you first start off. Or I want to be in SWAT. So I'm talking about the agencies, John, that have all of that stuff in-house, where most people, when they first start out, would want to work. I'm not talking about medium-sized department. I'm not talking about going from a small department to a medium-sized department. I'm talking about going to what most people would consider the big leagues of policing in Massachusetts. No, they don't take laterals. And if I'm wrong, please put something in the comments and we'll come back to it. Mike, I'm going to go to you for one last comment. Then we're going to see if we can hit some questions from the chat box. Go ahead, Mike.
No, I think you two gentlemen summed it up, and I share your sentiments. And unfortunately, a lot of department heads are not releasing people. They're not. They can't afford to release people as laterals. So that's another aspect of it. And I think a side effect of this is when you speak about departments being understaffed and underfunded, or asking police officers to do a lot with a little, I don't think it's talked about enough is the mental health of the men and women that go out there and do it every day. No one talks about that. No one talks about going to call after call after call and seeing some of the atrocities that some of the men and women have seen. No one talks about that stuff, and it's important because a lot of us in Massachusetts, we have to do 32 years on this job, and if you can leave this profession at the end of your 32nd year with your marbles still intact, it's a blessing, because you see a lot throughout those years, and the heavier the burden gets for us, the more and more it's going to really have a severe impact on our mental health. And it's important that people understand that, especially those who can actually make a difference and get us the help we need.
I co-sign. I rubber stamp that comment right there.
Yeah. Dean, I don't know. What do you think about that?
Oh, well, first of all, thank you for asking me a question. A lot of times people don't want to hear what I have to say. So thank you very much. So as far as mental health and policing, it is something that has it's gotten better, but it's not anywhere near where it needs to be. In most departments, I know me, I'm going to talk about myself. I've never gone to work and felt stressed about some bad guy on the street. Generally, when there's stress, it's usually something internal. It's usually, within your own building. I've won 6 different badges, and it's existed in each one of those places to some degree or another. So, that's part of it. So we as a profession need to do better for the people that are in our building, and making sure that even if it's just me asking certain patrolmen that I know are going through something, just pull them aside and saying, "Hey, how are you? How you feeling? Talk to me. Come in, you can shut the door, you can unload on me, and we'll talk. And even if you just need me to sit there and shut up and just let you unload, then I'll do that." I'm fortunate. I am no longer part of a unit. I'm administrative, as you know, so I don't really I'm kind of a man without a country so much in my building, so to speak, which is okay. But when I was a patrol sergeant, which was my last posting, I had a lieutenant who was very easy to talk to, and he cares a lot about his guys, like all the lieutenants in my building do. I have a phenomenal group of lieutenants and staff members and other sergeants and things like that are great to talk to. But this one guy in particular, he's a guy that I felt comfortable talking to for certain things. And then I think it's also important that you have people outside of your building to talk to. I think that's important, because you have to be able to talk to somebody without any worry of what you're saying getting back to people in the building, right, and having it used against you. Yep. And that in itself is another stress that we have to deal with. So we could go on, and you know what, Obed, maybe that's something we need to do. Maybe we need to have a difficult conversation just about the mental health aspect of this job, because like you said, 32 years, Mike, the faces of dead people, the smells, yep, the people crying when you have to do death notifications. You and I are supervisors, and I think you're probably an outstanding supervisor, and I like to think I'm half decent at least. I would never have one of my patrolmen do a death notification. That is my job to do that. That is my job to do that. All right, I get paid a little bit more, and I have a little more responsibility. Like maybe they got to do more paperwork, crashes, things like that. But the tough stuff, telling somebody that they're never going to see a loved one again, that is on me. So, just that kind of stuff that you carry with you every year, every day, every week that you have to do that. It's just another log on the fire of this stuff that you have to carry with you, and it can become burdensome.
No doubt.
So, I want to say think it's problematic.
Yeah, this is particularly for the audience. I want those in the audience listening to what Dean and Mike were just saying, understand that, yes, the child sexual abuse, all of that stuff takes a toll on you, right? But the other elephant in the room is the administrative, the political, the internal politics of policing is just as stressful and plays just as much of a role. And the research on this, unfortunately, in policing, is that the number one stressor for police officers, it's the internal politics. It's the, am I doing my job right? Am I being second guessed? If I'm a supervisor and I didn't make the right call, now I'm being, you compound the street stuff that you see, but the internal stuff. I mean, family. Let me tell you something. I have a therapist. Okay? I have a therapist. And I have no shame in saying this out loud. And I have no shame in saying this amongst everybody who's watching this right now. If you don't take care of what's going on up here, especially in this profession, and if you try to play the whole, I'm a tough guy, I can deal and handle this, I'll just get a couple of drinks. You're doing yourself a disservice. Okay? Therapists have therapists. All right? So let's get rid of the stigma of, if you're a man and you're in a machismo profession, and I say machismo in air quotes, because it is male dominated. If you can't openly admit that you seek help because you're afraid of what others are thinking about you, you're doing yourself and you're doing the service. You're doing the community a disservice. Period. Because at the end of the day, when you retire, how many times do you hear about these guys dropping dead, even in corrections, within a year or 2 years, because they don't have purpose in life or they don't have any direction in life or anything like that? There is nothing wrong, okay, for those officers who might be watching this or those who might be in public safety, might be thinking about it, because I don't know who may see this message or who needs to hear this message, but there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. All right. I'm safe and sane. Yes, I'm a still normal guy. I watch ESPN. You know what I'm saying? I still do push-ups. I'm not as young as I used to be. You know what I'm saying? I'm not Dean anymore. I'm not a Aikido, expert or anything. But, you've got to – it's like if you have a sprained ankle or a broken leg, you go see a doctor. If your mind ain't where it's supposed to be, there is absolutely nothing wrong with talking to somebody about that. There's nothing wrong with that. So I would encourage anybody watching this who's second guessing whether or not it's something that they should or shouldn't do it. There's nothing wrong with it.
Amen.
So, Mike, I'm going to go to you for a comment, but I got to give Obed a little love here. First of all, Obed, thank you so much for having the courage to come on here. I mean, this is a Facebook Live, so who knows who can see this or where this is going to go. And thank you for having the courage to come out and say that. If somebody with your credentials and your mental aptitude feels that it's that important to talk to somebody and have somebody that you can unload to, that is
yeah.
I hope if there's any officers out there that are listening, people that are thinking about it, thinking that things are insurmountable, share this.
Yes.
Pass this along. Pass this podcast on to your coworkers. Because if somebody can get something from this, then and maybe we can save a life and we can keep somebody from doing something final. I think we're all obligated to do that. Yeah. So kudos to you for having the courage to say that out there in front of all these strangers. Yeah. Go ahead, Mike. I know you.
No, and I can't speak behind that. I mean, again, I share the same sentiments as Dean. To have the courage to say that, and it's okay. And again, because it's important. It's important to, again, like I said, a lot of law enforcement do many years and they see a lot of things, and so it's important to have an outlet. And what's more important than that outlet being able to express yourself and talk to somebody and get your thoughts out there. Don't hold it in. And that's important to say, Obed, because that's part of changing the culture of policing that everybody talks about. The culture in policing is, we're tough. We don't crack, and that's the wrong attitude to have, and that definitely needs to change in policing, because we're human beings. We are literally from the communities that we serve. So so prior to putting on that uniform and that badge, we're going through the same life struggles and the same things that everybody else is dealing with. We're just expected to be the better person. We're expected. It's expected of, and that alone is a heavy burden. But when you got to couple that with the heavy responsibility of potentially taking away somebody's freedoms, it's a very, very big burden. And I'm glad you said that, Obed, because that's a huge part about changing the culture of policing. Thank you very much.
Well, fellas, I know this is tough to believe. We've been on for 55 minutes.
What? It felt like 3 minutes. Hold on, let me check my watch. What's going on? It says 3 minutes. We were only on here for 3 minutes.
Well, this is what happens when you have people that are even when we disagree, people that can disagree and be amicable, people that when they have an idea, they can actually articulate their idea. This is what happens, and this is what needs to happen more often with these difficult conversations, and people can explain what it is, what their thought processes are. So let me just go to the comment section real quick. So I have a guy named Mike. Mike is a guy that I went to high school with many, many years ago. He started out in where I work now. He is now on the Boston PD, and he says that accepting laterals would solve their deficit. I agree with you, Mike. I'm familiar with the academy setup over there. I think that you're only you're only equipped to handle maybe 100, 110 recruits a year. And I believe you're several hundred in the whole, and then with more people retiring, because obviously that doesn't stop just because you need bodies. If anything, it might push people to retire. So you're probably right, Mike. I'm not sure what the plan is there, but I think laterals would absolutely help. In regard to recruitment, so Aaron says, in regard to recruitment, how would you bridge the gap between young people who are driving the ACAB movement and yourselves to get them to want to be officers? I got to be honest with you, Aaron. I'm going to answer that very simply. I'm going to answer that with an old saying that my football coach, Obed, and I played for this guy named Coach Carroll. Coach Carroll said something to me that resonated with me tremendously when I said something similar to him about, hey, let's go easy on people so they don't quit. And he said something along the lines of this. He said, Dino, when you have to talk somebody into doing something, they're going to let you down when you need them the most. Think about that for a moment. So if I have to talk somebody into taking this job, if it's not something that they already want to do, is that somebody that I want to go up that stairway with at 3 a.m. and there's a blood trail leading up to an apartment with people screaming? Does that person, I don't know if I want to be with that person that didn't really want to be in this profession. Anybody, I'm not going to lie, the average day as a police officer, most people can do the average baseline task of a police officer. That's not the measurement. Anybody can pull a compliant person over and maybe write them a ticket for going through a stop sign. Anybody can do that. But what happens when you get that person that's not taking no for an answer, or that person that's hell-bent on hurting you, or that person that just hurt somebody else and you're in their way between freedom, what they perceive to be freedom or not? That's when you need to know that person really wants to be there. And so I'm not sure what I would do. And quite frankly, Aaron, I don't really think I would talk anybody into it. I might say that they'd be a good fit. But as far as convincing someone to take the job, that's not going to come from me, because I believe that if you convince people to do it, they're gonna let you down when you need them the most. That's just my opinion. Any thoughts on that, Obed, Mike?
A bit on this one.
All right, Obed, go ahead, buddy.
Well, Coach Carroll was a defensive guy. I was more of an offensive guy. So obviously there's going to be some beef between Dean and I, No, I mean, Dean, you're absolutely right. I mean, Coach Carroll was right too. It's like at the end of the, and this is a different series. So I'm just going to say that out from the outset. But, when you do something that you love, you don't work a day of your life, right? And we could do the best that we can in recruit. We could do the best that we can to help bridge that gap. But I'm going to equate this, since Dean brought up a football analogy, to this being a football analogy. So for those who don't watch football, there's 22 guys in the field. You have 11 on offense, 11 on defense, right? Everybody can't play quarterback. Everybody can't be a running back. You need a tight end. You need guards. You need tackles. You need wide receivers. On defense, you need defensive ends, tackles, you need defensive. Everybody's got a role to play. And no one role is more important than the next role. You may have some that are more influential, but what good is it if, you score, 50 points a game, but the other team is scoring 78? It's useless, right? So, and I'm not saying that this is a finite thing in, police community relations, or community police relations, I should say. We're all striving for a better world, a more just world in the end that's going to work for everybody. Okay. This is not just because you're pro-police, you're anti-community, or because you say, Black Lives Matter, Blue Lives don't, or anything like that. This is not, that's not what this is about. We're here because we want to make sure community members are safe and that they trust the institution of policing. We want to make sure at the same time, that police departments are also keeping their officers safe and sane. And to Mike's point, when it comes to mental health and all those other things, that we have a system that works for everybody and everyone is safe. Nobody's, we're not even going to get into the whole suicide thing and like what officers do to hurt themselves or self-medicate and all that kind of stuff, because we know that's a prevalent issue in our profession. At the end of the day, to your point, Dean, if somebody wants to do this job, great. But if somebody doesn't want to do this job, that's great too. You want to be a judge? You want to be a defense attorney? You want to be a prosecutor? You want to play on the same team, you want to be on the field from whatever respective position, right? To help others in a just system. There is nothing wrong with that. There is nothing wrong with somebody who wants to be, let's say you want to be an activist and you want to use research and data as your platform to help an institution be better. There is nothing wrong with that. That should be encouraged. Yes, we desperately, and I say this selfishly, we desperately need more police officers in the field. But, again, we have to take that with a grain of salt in the context of, if we have communities that are suffering economically, that is not a police problem. And if we know that economics is a great predictor of crime in the community, we need business leaders. We need the government to, infuse money in those impoverished communities, so that, if people are working and people have opportunities, they're not going to be out there committing crimes. We want people to get an education. I want people to look up to guys like you, Dean, and Mike, and be like, yo, I could be that guy. I could be a number 39. That's an inside thing for those who don't know. 39 was Dean's football number. But you know what I'm saying? I want to be like Mike. I'm pretty sure you've never heard that either. You know what I'm saying? So we want to set an example for those of us. We stand on the shoulders of those who came before us. And we need to have our shoulders together for those coming up behind us and leaving a more just world. My thing is legacy. And I know that when history looks back, they're going to look at you, Dean, and Mike. They're going to be like, hey, those brothers was doing something. It may not have been popular, but that's okay. They were the start. I don't want to say revolution, but they were the start of something different for something better.
Wakanda.
Y'all got receipts. Wakanda forever. You already know what it is. You know what I'm saying? Dean, you have receipts. Mike, you got receipts. Not that I didn't like the word deeds. I like receipts because you can actually touch receipt. You can see.
Tell the people at home what you mean by receipts real quick, and then I'm going to go to Mike for the last word.
So receipts is, you know what? I shouldn't have to talk to you to know what you're all about. I should Google your name, or Bing, for those who like Bing. I should be able to look you up online, and I should be okay, Dean is doing the supply the why. What is supply the why? Oh, he's talking about why do I care about policing? Why do I care about public safety? What am I doing? What contribution am I making? Those are the receipts that I'm talking about. I should be able to, before I even hear one word come from your mouth, I know that you're about that life. That's what I mean by receipts.
I like it, Obed. I love it. First of all, I've been drinking this. This is not alcohol. This is my wife's fancy water. Okay, I just want to get that out of the way. Secondly, so to touch upon the question about the whole ACAB movement, the whole anti-police atmosphere, I think if I were to say what would help it the most, the simplest answer I can give is education. Education is important, and it has to start in the home with these young folks, because if it doesn't start in the home, it doesn't matter what you learn in school. So it has to start in the home first, and that's where you make the most meaningful impact with this whole anti-police atmosphere, this ACAB movement. It's education, and it's. I think that's ultimately where you have the most impact with that mentality.
Education is key. There's no question about that. I'm just going to bring Obed in. Guys, you were amazing tonight. I can't say enough about everything you guys did and everything you continue to do, and your fresh perspectives. Just really quick, I'm going to look at the chat bar and look at somebody really, really wanted you to mention data.
I see who that is. Hey, shout out to Deborah Peel. For those who don't know, Deborah, she's going to be embarrassed about what I'm about to tell you. First crime analyst in the history of the NYPD.
Wow. Congratulations.
Deborah's a Hall of Famer, for those who don't know watching this right now. So shout out to you, Deborah. We're gonna have another webinar, so don't worry about it. We talk more about data. I know that's your thing, but we're talking to everybody up in here. So
All right, Deborah. A gentleman named Kevin. Kevin shared something that was based on what you said earlier, Obed. I think he was inspired by you. And he said, for 4.5 years sober, it's the best thing he ever did. It was ask for help. Never be afraid to ask for help. Amen. First of all, Kevin, I've known you since we went to elementary school together, all the way up through high school. So, Kevin, I'm very proud of you. And I know that your life is a lot better. Things have probably become clearer with your sobriety. And I'm proud of you for taking that step. And I know every day's a challenge, but I know you're gonna keep killing it, brother.
Congratulations.
Great job.
Yeah, right on. Right on.
Nancy,
right on.
Nancy, thank you so much for your support. Nancy says that it was amazing, and I have to give all the credit to these guys right here, because without them, it would just be me droning on by myself. So fantastic.
No, Dean. Dean, you're the hub. You're the hub. We're just
the glue. You're the glue, dude.
You're the hub.
Oh,
yeah, we ain't doing that. We ain't doing that negative self-talking here. All right, we ain't doing that up in here. Okay.
Well, as you guys know, as we talked about when we were backstage before the show, the virtual backstage before the show, this is all about networking for me. Doing this stuff, I've connected with police officers all across the country. I've had people reaching out to me about what they're doing, asking questions about what I'm doing. And if I can get people together, within our industry, and then maybe some other people, there's plenty of people in the chat that are not police officers that are on board with what we're talking about, and they like some of the fresh perspectives and how candid we are, then that's a start. And that's what I'm trying to do. So at this point, we're almost an hour and 10 minutes, and I'm gonna go be a dad. So
you sure? Because I think we're at 5 minutes now.
Guys, thank you so much. Dr. Obed Magny.
Thank you, Dean.
I hope you guys come back again soon, and we'll talk more. There's so much for us to unpack and so many things for us to tackle, and there's so many people clearly that want to hear your perspectives, and they want us to kind of help them make sense of what's going on in the world. So thank you both very much. Once again, big shout out to Meeting House Mill for the cup. Also the shirts, K&P Designs came up with the shirts. So if you're interested in either one, stay tuned. We're going to be selling these to help kind of, just raise a little bit of awareness for what we're trying to do here. So lots of great things to come, folks. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Difficult Conversations by Supply the Y. Good night, everybody.
Be well.
Thank you.